Our first presenting company this morning will be Risk Business, Inc. Risk Business is an internet... Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's good. I apologize. Hopefully Russ will forgive me. At this point, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Russell Artzt, one of the co-founders of CA Technologies, formerly known as Computer Associates, one of the largest and most successful technology companies in the history of Long Island. With my apologies, Russ.
Thanks, Neil. Boy, I could take a hint. I thought I was going to go home early. Well, thank you, Neil and LICA. For inviting me to speak today. I originally told Neil when we first spoke over a month ago that I would talk about big data. It's something that I'm interested in and my team is working on at CA Technologies. But I thought it might be more interesting to start off and talk about Computer Associates, we're now CA Technologies, and talk about us as a startup that grew into a large software company, talk about the journey, because I think we learned a lot of lessons in our journey, and I thought it would be interesting for you to hear about it. I mean, it's amazing. I look today, we started in 1976. It was two people who started it. Charles Wang was the CEO. As you know, he's the owner solo of the Islanders. And now moving to Brooklyn now that they've gotten really good. And it was Charles and myself. I was the technology guy building products. Charles was the CEO and the business guy. But we worked very closely together, and did everything together. If I look today, at the world, and you see the technology that's taken over, especially software is taking over the business. People call it the app economy. You walk into a retail store and they're using Apple's beacons, and they know who just walked in from your iPhone. They tell you get a little note on your iPhone that please go to the men's wear has a sale today. Go up to the southwest corner. It's unbelievable. The technology's fantastic. Trust me, in 1976, we didn't have any such technology. You weren't driving up to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and putting your phone, tapping using NFC, near field communications, and you paid. Amazing. The technology's amazing today. We're in the middle of it. But when we started, Charles and myself, back in 1976, think about it. We didn't have, there were no PCs, there were no Macs, there certainly were no iPads or Android tablets or iPhones. We worked right from the beginning. The big market in those days was the IBM mainframe. Different than today. If I look at startups today, and I'm involved with a lot of different startups, the startups today, you can start a company, and you buy yourself a Mac or a PC and an iPad and an iPhone, you're all set. You use Amazon for your compute, for your storage. You have your devices, and you can build software, very cheaply. When we started, you had to do anything, and we were interested in the software business. We were interested in mainframes because that was the market. You had to buy a mainframe to get to get computers on. Who can afford a mainframe? Mainframe, was $2-3 million at the time. We were lucky if we had $200. So we started, with very modest means, but we had an idea. We had a concept. We had worked at a few other companies before we started. It was Computer Associates. How many of you know Computer Associates more than you know the name CA Technologies? I still, when I tell people, I go to conferences, I tell them, I work for CA Technologies, they look at me like, excuse me? I say, well, Computer Associates, oh yeah, we know Computer Associates. But we changed the name, and it's CA Technologies. But, when we started as Computer Associates, we had to figure out, how do you survive? It was two young kids, we were in our 20s. We didn't have any money. We didn't have a place to go. So here's how we started. We were resourceful. We had a friend who was running a service bureau. In those days, the service bureaus, they get jobs from companies to do work. You know, today they're called managed service providers, solution providers. You know, but in those days we called them service providers. And we were friends with this guy Leo, and he had beautiful offices on Madison Avenue and 62nd Street. And he took us up there one day. We were friends, and I had done some programming work for him. And Charles told Leo, you know, we need some office space. Not much, you know, we can just squeeze in anywhere. It's the two of us. We'll probably hire a few people. We'll get a secretary. Maybe we'll hire a salesperson. So he walks us around, and it's busy. And, you know, we see this little hallway, a little strip. And it looked like a bunch of closets, you know, and with some little offices. And he said, well, no one's here. I don't know if you can fit in here. Oh, we'll take it. No problem. And Leo says, all right, I'm going to have to figure out how to charge you guys. And you have to remember, in those days, you know, we couldn't afford rent. We were trying to figure out how we were going to bring some money in. And so Charles right away, very quick thinking, he goes back to Leo and says, no, Leo, Russ here knows that you had just bought a mainframe. He had just bought a mainframe computer for a service. And he had a bunch of COBOL programs. I said, Russ here is an expert on the mainframe. I had learned the mainframe. And he wrote this debugger for COBOL. And I know all you guys are learning COBOL and they need help. We got this great tool for them. We can help them, you know, teach them the mainframe. And, you know, you give us this space and Russ will help you guys out. Okay. We were there for our first 3.5 years. No rent. I helped them. You know, I helped them programmers. I couldn't get the computer whenever I wanted. But, you know, we did a barter. We did a barter deal. And then what we did is we found out we started getting work to survive. You know, we didn't have any products yet. We had this vision of building software products, but we didn't have anything yet. So we were getting services work. It's always good to get services work to keep the revenue coming in. So we were getting services work, you know, and what would come in is every Thursday or Friday, at the end of the week, we would do these deals with a number of different companies. They'd give us these lists, these name and address lists that were all coded differently, you know. And sometimes the states were two characters, sometimes the states were full. You know, there was all kinds of information in there that we had to encode. We had to convert it and generate computer letters, and it was due Monday morning. So we found this company, and we couldn't use Leo's computers because he's so busy working on the weekend. We found this computer on Hudson Street, and I can tell you, you know Hudson Street in Lower Manhattan, today it's beautiful, you know, and there's startups there, and there's a residential area, and they're selling, you know, they sell condos there, etc. Well, it was a dump. In those days, it was a dump, you know. And we found a place on Hudson Street that gave us a big 360 computer that we could use from Friday night at midnight until Monday morning at 5 a.m. Nobody was ever there, and we could have it. That was like gold for us. So we would spend every weekend, I'd go there Friday night at midnight, work through the night. We would operate the machine. And that's how I really learned the computer field, and both of us. You know, we learned how to operate them. There were no operators. We couldn't afford to hire an operator. I had to write the programs to convert all the data. It wasn't, you know, you weren't getting a DVD or a disc. You were getting a tape, magnetic tape with data on it. You had to mount the tape. We had to convert the data, and then we had to generate specialized letters, computer letters that were upper and lower case. And upper and lower case was a real challenge because you had to put in a special print chain for upper and lower case printing. First time I did that, I mean, the programming was easy for me. Changing that print chain was rough. First time I did it, I was supposed to use these gloves. I didn't use gloves. Well, by the time I finished getting the chain in, I was black, you know, from the ink. You know, it was a mess. But, you know, that's how we learned the business. And we'd spend all weekend getting it right. The letters had to be perfect. We had to get every name and address converted properly, etc. And then we get paid when we turned in the letters. And that's how we survived for a while. We got a lot of money. We got more and more of them. And then we figured out that, you know what? We don't need to do this every weekend. Let's write a language that would define how to convert this data. You know, we'll have the language that says, well, if this, then do this. You know, we put a little language together that would convert the data automatically. Then once we did that, we hired an operator who we taught how to use the language. We got smart, and that was kind of our foray into building generic products. Our vision was, this is what we did, is not to do services. We did services to support ourselves. But our vision was, let's build software products that you build it once, you sell it to a customer, and then you sell that and you get the customer up and running, and then you sell that same product, unmodified, to 1,000 other customers. And that's what we started doing. And that was the beginning of the software industry. In those, there really was no industry then for software. You know, all the software, 99% of the software was coming from the hardware vendors. IBM gave you lots of software with their operating system, you know, and digital equipment at the time. DEC, if you, those of you who remember DEC, you know, they were big in the mini computers, if you remember the term mini computer. You know, but it was most of the biggest market for us was we focused on IBM's mainframe. There was no software market. So, you know, there's a few companies out there, but we kind of, I feel like we helped build this industry, you know, because we figured out what software products we wanted to write. The first product that we wrote, I had figured out I was using one of the IBM operating systems. I saw one day, we had some important files, and I saw one day, just by changing, everything was on cards in those days, you changed a few parameters. You had to specify where on the disk you wanted your file to be, physically. You know, you had to specify. And if you happen to overlap with someone else's data, you get a message on the console, which is a printed console coming out, that would say, file, master file XYZ, do you want to delete it? Because you've specified that you want to create a file that overlaps on the disk, on that extent, where an existing file is. All you had to do is say yes, and that file's gone. Who knows if he backed it up? You know, gone. So I came back, I said, you know what, Charles, we need to build an automatic disk space manager, and that's what we developed. One of the first products we developed for CA was called DynaMD. We still have customers running it. Seriously, and we figured out, you know, I spent a lot of time figuring out how to do it. We had to go figure out how, you know, how the operating system formatted the disks, and, you know, and figure out where everything was and where the files were and the disk extents, and we ended up allocating disk space automatically. That was our disk space manager. Then we did the same thing for tape. Created something called DynaMD, started creating a portfolio to protect tapes, because that was another problem. How do you make sure that when someone wants to use a tape that they get the right one? We look at the file name, the volume serial number, etc. And that was the start. So with those two products, the Dynam products, I would go out, when we first built them, we'd go out and we'd find 5 or 6 customers. I'd go, some in Vermont, in Boston, in New York, and I would live there until they actually had the product up and running in production. So I'd stay there. Sometimes it was, you know, I'd go there for a week, come home, go back, you know, and once we had 5 reference customers who were up and running in production, we got it. And then we hired a sales guy. Charles was selling all the time, but we hired a sales guy, and all of a sudden the orders are coming in. You know, every week we're getting new orders. You know, getting 50,000 here, you know, and we had a business. So we had a business. And we started hiring people. You know, and we had an interesting model the way we grew. I know I don't have that much time. The model was, you know, I was always a developer at heart, and I wanted to develop everything. And you know, give me a few more. And I believed in small teams. You know, I don't need, you know, you need quality. You need quality people. When we did Dynam, it was me and another guy. You know, who built it. You know, you have the right people, you can develop good software. Then you need bigger groups once you have a customer base and you have to support it. The beauty of when you're first starting up, you don't have much of a customer base. You just need good developers who can develop and knock products out. Then once you have the problem of customers, which is a good problem to have, you know, then you've got to hire support people and, you know, you start hiring more people. But you don't need, the development teams don't need to be all that big. And that was our philosophy, and I always went to Charles and said, you know, I can build this, I can build that, we have these Dynam products, let's build a scheduling product, let's do security, let's do, you know, workload scheduling. And we used to always have these arguments where Charles would say, you know, I found a company, they're in Virginia, and they do job accounting, chargeback accounting, you know, on the computer. And I said, yeah, I've seen that product. I could write it. I said, well, how long would it take? Not me personally anymore. Well, we'll get a small team and we'll write it. And he would say, okay, how long would it take you to write it? I said, we'll probably get something out for our early customers in about 6 months. And I thought that was pretty good, right? And that will take a couple of months till we get customers running, and then we'll go to production and we'll be rolling, right? And it won't cost us anything. And Charles came back to me and said, well, that's great. We're in June, you're telling me by the end of the year maybe we'll have something. I could buy this company Tuesday. We could be selling it next Friday, So the bottom line is we did a lot of both. Our business model was to develop internally, develop our own software, to buy companies, and then integrate the companies. Because our philosophy there with acquiring companies was, sometimes, some companies buy companies and leave them alone. Sometimes that's a smart thing to do. Our philosophy was, let's bring them all into CA. From day one, let's bring them in, let's tell them they're part of Computer Associates, and they need to adopt our way of working, our culture. We'll take in their ideas, but we're going to bring them into it. It's going to be one company. At the beginning, we were very careful to acquire companies that fit into our bottom lines, that were very synergistic with what we were building. So we did that, and all through the years, then we started growing like crazy because we built new products. We had a focus. Our focus was in really managing large. We always went after the Fortune 1000, Fortune 2000. Today, every Fortune 1000 customer in the world, every Fortune 1000 company in the world, worldwide, have at least one CA product. We've concentrated on the biggest companies. Didn't really concentrate on the smaller companies. We do some of that now today. But for many, many years, our focus was the Fortune 1000. And even today, I would say 70–80% of our revenue still comes from those Fortune 1000, even Fortune 500 companies. That's what we focused on. And we focused on managing their data centers across the world. And their data centers were enormous. You go to these banks like JP Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley and all the big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're all our customers. They have data centers everywhere, and they're enormous. We have hundreds of thousands of service people. You can't imagine how many devices they have, especially today with mobile devices. So, it was a big job for us, but we focused on managing everything and securing everything. That was our focus. We manage and secure everything. Okay? And then we took some chances. I can remember in 1988, we were doing about $200 million. We had helped build this software industry as we know it today. We were a solid company. We had gone public. We went public in 1988. We went public. Started on the we started on the New York Exchange and then switched over and then went back to the New York Stock Exchange. We went public in the 80s. In 87, we were doing about $250 million. And our biggest competitor, we were on the mainframe. It was IBM, which is a company you sell and us. And we decided, okay, they're good, we're good, it's you sell company. IBM was another lead, right? And we said, we're going to buy them. Let's try to buy them. Let's see if they're interested. They were interested. And they were a fortune. We made the biggest deal in history for a $250 million company. We bought UCell at $800 million. It was unheard of. Unheard of. It was a stock deal. We didn't have the cash. We did a stock deal. And we took my point of bringing it up is we took some big chances. But from that day forward, we became the #2 next to IBM mainframe software company in the world. And until today, we are still the #2 software company in the world on the mainframe. 56% of our revenue even today is mainframe, and let me tell you, it is obscenely profitable. It's a great business. The problem is it doesn't grow. It's pretty flat. It causes us problems of growth, but
Monday I would look at Computer World. That was the thing, you know, all the people in my field, we do Computer World. It was like, the Wall Street guys were reading the Wall Street Journal. And I'd read Computer World, and the big headlines in Computer World was, the mainframe is dead. D-E-A-D, dead. And at that point, 99%, close to 100% of our revenue was mainframe based. It was all mainframe software. That's what we did. We sold the software, installed it, it was all product revenue on the mainframe software. And Charles and I were you gotta do something. You know, you gotta figure something out. And what we figured out is I had already researched, I had gotten into database a little bit, and I had looked at the client server space. We had looked at the Unix and Linux marketplace. I actually went out in the 80s, I went out to California, and I went to University of California, Berkeley. Berkeley had this database. It was all written in this language C called Ingress, with Oracle. And I went out there, 83, 84. I met the people who built the database. They gave me, said, well, why don't you take a tape back? The source code here, we have $100. Just to pay for us creating the tape and everything. Yeah, I think so. So I gave him $100, and I got the source code for English. It was a database, a full database. Brought it back, and we figured out how to implement it on the mainframe. And we created a mainframe database out of that code. You know, with a full relational database, we called it C8 Universe. It had forms-based capabilities that we developed around the database. So we knew that industry a bit, and we said, you know what? We have the mainframe business. It's a good business. It's going to keep running. But how are we going to grow? So there was this client-server business. All of a sudden, data centers were changing. You know, it used to be all mainframes and mini computers, right? It was changing. All of a sudden, some companies that were very smart figured out, you know, they work full-time, so I get them full-time June, July, August. I pay for their tuition, and we're done. You know, we get great talent who we can manage and see every day, so you can get good productivity out of it. You know, one of the problems today, and we have it, all the companies have it, you know, you go and invest in India. It's, oh, wow, India, you know, you can get great programmers for, you know, $20,000 a year. But how do you manage them? If you don't manage them, you're not going to get the productivity. And that's always a challenge. And there's different ways to do it. Some companies are more successful than others. We had these folks, and it's a mix. What I found at Stony Brook is most of the undergrads are U.S. citizens, U.S. born. I would say 80%. Masters and PhD, more than half were international. More than half are from India, China, and Korea. Unbelievable. But I also noticed that in the last couple of years, the computer science field is booming. It's booming. Why? Because people are realizing we need computer scientists, we need software developers. You know, it doesn't always work going to India. We need it here. The big banks on Wall Street hiring like crazy. New York City's hiring like crazy. Silicon Valley's hiring like crazy. All the big cities are. And there's a big movement in the software industry. You know, companies will, you know, and computer science graduates commanding, you know, if they have the right skills and coming out of Stony Brook, they get the right skills. And then if they work for me at Stony Brook, I give them an experience that, you know, that's unique. They really are able to get great jobs. And I've hired half of the people who graduate, I hire for CA. And they don't always stay in Long Island. We'll move them to different locations. We have different development locations across the country. So, bottom line is, you know, my career at CA, it's a great ride. You know, we're doing great things. I'm into big data now. I said I would talk a little bit about it. The last project, I did mobile a year or so ago. Now my team is doing big data. My job is to get my company into new areas. You know, because one of our problems is we haven't, like we did with Unicenter in the 90s, where we capitalized and exploited the new market, client server. Well, new markets come out, and you got to be there. So my team is one of the teams that does that, and we're working on big data. Big data is think I'm over. Am I new?
Yeah.
Time. But I thought it would be an interesting story, and I think we'll take your questions later.
If you want to take a couple of questions now, do it now while you're
Here,
here.
now while I'm here? Okay. Any questions about anything I said? I think that, in summary, the companies that will do it in the future, the companies that use disruptive technology, like mobile, lines of data, that build products that satisfy the needs of customers. Customers that they want to do, that's what they become the leaders in this industry. Companies like Splunk, we took an opportunity, to look at data analytics and figure out, you know what, this data is great, but nobody understands what it means. We're going to do some analytics on the data. We're going to normalize all the data and make it easier to understand what's here and what's going on in the business. Splunk is a company that's done very well. So, I think that's what you have to look for. And frankly, that's why a company like what we're trying to do at CA and why I'm running an innovation center at Stony Brook is to be able to have CA grow and take advantage of this disruptive technology. If you don't, you're not going to grow.
IBM's trying to tackle problems like transportation, building, automation, and energy, healthcare. Where is CA focusing on big data? What industries? What problems?
Okay, so we've never focused on verticals. IBM's done very, very well focusing on verticals. They've done amazingly well with their services business, their global services business. That's not our thing. Is we develop products like in big data, horizontal. So we go across the board. Every large enterprise today, it's called the Fortune 2000, are using big data in different ways. We're going to provide a product that will manage and secure their data and their environments. Okay, I don't care if they're in the manufacturing business, healthcare business, if they're in the retail business, it doesn't matter to us. We treat them all the same, and we do it. So we go at a horizontal level. Haven't done verticals yet.
Last question.
Yeah, big data is great, but it's also very big. In the context of retail technology, where do you see opportunity and leveraging the big data to come up with retail solutions?
And a lot of there are companies doing it. I think that, first of all, giving businesses insight into what their customers want and what their customers' behavior is very important. It's what every retailer wants, and so that's a big opportunity. If you can provide real insight into what the retail's customers are doing, what their behavior is, what they're interested in. They buy this, what do they like to buy next? What should we present to them automatically? They bought X, Y, and Z on Tuesday, and they come back next Tuesday. What are you going to show them? Why don't you show them something relevant? I think it's all this customer insight in retail. That's a big thing. The other thing is there's probably a market to look at some of the